So, the quality of matches in World Warships hasn't been overly fantastic here recently. Now, I've been playing this game since it came out, basically. I started playing in 2017, and I'm not going to act like every single match back in the day was this, perfect, close game where it came down to the last two ships alive on either side. There were very much blowout matches back in the day, too, but it certainly seemed that you got these extreme blowout matches like the one you're going to watch in the background much less often back then than you do today. And you got a lot more just, good matches back in the day that may not have come down to, the wire, but they were good, solid games. There was a healthy amount of back and forth, and sure, by the time you got down to the last 5 minutes of the game, one team might have, four ships alive, while the other team only has two ships alive. But, that's hardly a blowout match. I would consider that to be a pretty good match in today's World of Warships, but that is most certainly not the case today. So we're going to talk about all that today, and I'm going to give you guys my 2 cents on what I think's going on, at least with, current World of Warships. So, if you go and talk to more veteran players, I've talked to, well, most of my friends are veteran players, as I met them, when I started playing the game back in 2017. They like to describe this as like a perpetual patch week, if you will. So if you don't know, Patch Week is typically a time when matches aren't overly fantastic. And don't get me wrong, they're not normally fantastic too much anymore, but during Patch Week it seems like they are even less so. Why? Because usually you have the more casual players hopping on, checking out the update, checking out the new ships, and then hopping off for that week. You see, there are plenty of players in this game that they don't follow what goes on in the development cycle of the game. They don't really care about any of the changes that happen from patch to patch. They just want to go into the game, sail their boat around, shoot at other pixel boats for like 2 or 3 matches, and then log off. That is a very large part of the player base, believe it or not. That's all they do. They don't look up the patch notes, they don't watch YouTube videos on the game, they don't go any deeper than just logging on, in the afternoon after work, playing a few matches, and then logging off. And you get more of those players that hop on during patch week, because again, there's new stuff for them to look at for a couple of days, and then, they go back to, maybe just playing once or twice in an evening. So, when you have players like that are, returning to the game during those times, they, of course, because they don't, digest more information about the game, they're not really the most up-to-date on a lot of the mechanic changes, on, what this new ship does and is, and how's the best way to counter it and such. So when you have more players like that playing, obviously you're not going to have the best matches, because if half of the enemy team are a bunch of super casuals that don't keep up with the changes, then yeah, you're not going to have a great team. This game, doing well in this game is 80% information. Knowing your ship, knowing its characteristics, knowing the enemy ship, knowing the enemy ship's characteristics, knowing how, ricochet mechanics, overmatch mechanics, fire mechanics, flooding mechanics, detection mechanics, knowing how all that works will put you way ahead of your average Joe World of Warships player, right? And it's not really a lot of information that you have to know, it's just some basic things. And of course, with how the game does change throughout the year, there is a bit that you do have to keep up on, like with all the CV changes. We got a round of CV changes last patch, with regards to, air detection mechanics, and of course, with the CVs having secondary guns that they can control now. Those are some pretty big changes, and if you aren't aware of those changes, you don't know how to best profit from those changes, right? So there is a lot that has to be kept up on with World of Warships, and a lot of these more casual players simply don't, right? So, obviously, when you have a huge amount of them coming back to the game, like right now, if you haven't checked the player numbers, the game is doing very good right now. We had, believe it or not, for the first time, and I think since the game launched, the player base actually grew in July. July is actually one of the most dead times for the game in the traditional ebb and flow of how the player base flows throughout the year. But this July, we had player base growth. And then in August, we had double the amount of players that are normally on in August, which is crazy. For example, now I'm just going off of Steam charts. I haven't checked out the other stat site, but Steam charts, the trends you see on Steam charts, you see on the stat site just in a bigger way, because more players play the game on the Wargaming client than they do on Steam, but the trends still show. For example, on Steam charts, in last August, we only had 6,550 players playing in August. This August, the average number was up to 14,341 players. That is a massive growth. So, obviously, a lot of these players aren't veteran players, because veteran players, we've stuck with the game through hell and high water, right? These are the more casual players coming back to the game to obviously get their doubloons, get their steel, and enjoy all the anniversary festivities and such, which, rightfully they should be doing. So you're having a big resurgence of players that maybe haven't played the game in 3 or 4 years, right? So like the last time they might have played the game was when submarines were introduced into testing, and they dipped out. But now that you can get all this free stuff during the anniversary event, they've returned to the game, and they're struggling to really catch up with the 3 or 4 years of change, or however long they've been gone worth of change that's happened in the game. And a lot has happened in like the past 2 years, right? You can go back and just look at my dev blog videos and all the crazy ships that have been added into the game, all the mechanics that have been changed. So when you just walk back into the game 3 years out of date, you're not going to really know what's going on. You're not going to know that the funny Dutch ships have planes that they can spawn out of the air. You're not going to know that Utrecht's probably one of the most cracked ships in the game. Last time you played, the Colombo was kind of mid, and now he's ripping you for 15 to 30k every salvo, right? So, there's a lot of that going on right now. Now, speaking of ships like the Utrecht and the Colombo, we've gotten some pretty nutty ships in the past few years. I mean, again, the Utrecht, the William de Urs, the Hildebrand, the St. Vincent, the Shinano. I can go on and on and on and on and on with these ships. And speaking of that, too, I mean, look at the last dev blog, right? We're getting some pretty, even more insane ships with the Hawaii, the Aki, and the Surcouf coming to the game. So obviously, too, if you've been gone for 2 or 3 years, and not only has a lot of the mechanics changed in the game, but you have these ships, you have no idea what they are, but they are exceptionally punishing if you don't know how to deal with them. Like Shinano. Sure, Shinano is just another carrier, so as long as you counter it like any other carrier, you'll be fine. And that's good and dandy and all until its skip bombers roll up, and oh, those aren't HE skip bombers, those are AP skip bombers. So, if I'm in a situation where I've got some enemy ships to my bow and the carriers come in to attack me with their skip bombers, traditionally, I'll just whatever, I'll eat the skip bombers, right? I'll get a couple of fires, I'll damage count it, but I really can't, show my side to the 2 ships in front of me because I don't want to get, slapped with their AP. But now here comes a Shinano, and he has AP skip bombers, and I'm about to lose, 20,000 HP because I'm a new, not newer, but I'm a returning player, and I don't know that thing has AP skip bombers, right? And I'm about to get just nuked, right? So things like that also don't help the current situation in game, right? And then you have the bots. So botting is not a new thing in World of Warships. We've all seen them. There's that one random tier 10 cruiser that is just shooting the water, or he's just sailing around in the back of the map doing basically nothing. That's a bot. If you guys don't know, there are whole businesses that you pay them, they'll set up a bot, and they'll, play that one ship on your account, and it's just going to grind out the matches until eventually, it has enough XP or credits or whatever it needs to do whatever you want, right? Now, obviously, with the case of there being a bunch of doubloons or steel and ships being offered for just playing the game, there's a hell of a lot more bots in the game right now than there is normally. We ran across a couple on Friday night's live stream, and the Name It Tomorrow operations too. It was a bot Cleveland. He just sat there and shot the water for most of the operation. So that's obviously not very helpful during the operation, right? So you've got that going on too. So in short, big anniversary event, bunch of free stuff's being added in. You have a massive amount of returning players that aren't up to date with the game. You know, they're not used to Colombo being able to actually hit you and remove 15k to 30k every salvo, right? They're not used to all the crazy airstrikes and all the other nutty ships that we have in game now. And of course we have people botting, trying to get their doubloons and steel and their San Diego. And the truth of the matter is that this is just like the opening stages of the 10th anniversary event. The actual 10th anniversary update starts Wednesday. So we're going to see even more players showing up, because for that event you just have to log in and you can get your, you know, free container and such. And of course they're going to stick around trying to get their doubloons and such. Then we have the US Navy's 250th anniversary event, where you can get another free tier 8 cruiser too by playing the game. So it's fantastic that Wargaming is giving away all this free stuff, don't get me wrong, but this is just the side effect of having, you know, a ton of people coming back to the game. And of course, again, all the free stuff being basically, you know, what most botters want to get, right? So you've got like the perfect storm to have, you know, not so great matches right now. Will it get better? Maybe. You know, I would like to think that most players, if they're coming back and they're just getting absolutely walked over, maybe they'll, you know, look up some more information about, hey, you know, what's going on in the game, what's this ship, what's that ship, how does this work now, how does that work now. I'd like to think so, but who knows? It's the general public that we're talking about. All right, so that can go either way. But that is my 2 cents as to what's going on right now. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you guys agree, disagree? Do you think something else is going on? Do you think this is just the nature of the game now with all the wacky stuff Wargaming has added to it? So yeah, share your thoughts with us down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.